whether you're 2 or 62, we're pretty much hardwired the same way. And when you're a parent, you spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week trying to get people to do what you want them to. And that's the same thing you do when you're managing people. You're just trying to get everyone motivated and working in the right direction. And a lot of that is reliant on their human nature. It occurred to me that perhaps I'm not quite as smart as I thought I was when I was pitching this book idea. And so I called up my editor and I said, well, what if I interview other women? And she said, you know what? Books with a lot of people in them sell better, far better than books with just one person. So I interviewed 60 women. And everywhere from executives to firefighters to pilots to doctors to a Pulitzer Prize winner. I interviewed a woman who is one of the producers on the show 24, the TV show 24. So the first chapter is called Remember That Getting Dressed Can Take All Morning. Do any of you have kids? Do any of you have kids? Okay. You know, I have been an executive for many, many, many years before I had kids. I actually have done a lot of difficult things. I've had big budgets, I've had big projects, I've led all sorts of things. Nothing is as hard as getting my kids ready for school in the morning. Every morning it kicks my butt. It's amazing to me how hard it is to get kids out of bed, dressed, into school. And then and it occurred to me that the reason that it's difficult to get your kids to school on time is the same reason it's difficult to manage people through change, your employees through change, and that is because we resist change. As humans, we don't like moving on to the next phase. Oddly enough, even sometimes when it's better for us or it's going to be more enjoyable, it's often hard for us to switch to that next gear, to move to that next stage of life, what have you. And so, taking the analogy of getting your kids dressed in the morning, a few pieces of advice. Remember that you are further along in the process than your children or your subordinates. So, for example, when I sashay into my daughter's room and I say, wake up, and I open up the windows, and I've been up for 2 hours. I've had my coffee, I've taken my shower, I've listened to music, I've read my paper, I've applied my makeup, blow-dried my hair. They are rubbing their tired little eyes, and they don't have the words to articulate, Mommy, slow down, I need to catch up with you. The same thing is true with your employees. If you are the boss of somebody, you have probably sat at the table where the decision to make a change was made. You are far ahead of them in the process. And when you go to tell them about the change, you can't forget that. You've had time to process it. You've had time to deal with it emotionally or whatever. They have not. The second thing, remember that you have more control over the environment than your employees do. So, like, for example, when I wake my kids up in the morning, if I don't want to go to school or work, really, I can keep the whole family home. I mean, really, I could do that. My kids, no way. No matter how much they plead with me, no matter how much they beg, they're not staying home from school. They don't have control over whether or not they go to school. And that's just it. That's a really uncomfortable position to be in, especially during times of change. One of the women that I interviewed for the book, she's a principal at an accounting firm in downtown Seattle, and she was talking about how their company had to do a complete redesign of their offices. So they had a space that they needed to fit more people in. So they took cubicles and they took offices and they made them smaller. Have any of you have ever gone through a time when somebody's office got shrunk? It's brutal. People get really protective of their space, and this company actually was making some people's offices smaller, not everyone's, but some, and they were making people's cubicles smaller so they could fit more people into the space. And it was a really stressful time for people. You know, if you've ever had your office space in any upheaval in your physical office space, you know that it's just stressful. But what they did was they said, every employee can choose their carpet for their office or the wall paneling for their cubicle. And they gave them 4 different swaths, and you got to choose. what color your environment would be. And she said, you know, I never in a million years would have thought that that would have gone as far as it did in helping people be comfortable with the change, but it really did. People accepted it more because they had some semblance of control over what their new space would look like.
Thank you.
So, remember, in closing, good parents are singularly focused on building a world in which their children flourish. A good parent is relentless in their quest to ensure their children thrive. Imagine if a boss did the same for her employees.